Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Zainub. I'm representing CAIR-National, and today we're going to be speaking to Layli Shirani and her client Mahwish about an incident that happened to her client and the forcible removal of her hijab. So I wanted to introduce Layli Shirani. Could tell us a little bit about her role at CAIR, and then she can introduce Mahwish.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Layli Shirani. I'm the staff attorney for civil rights with the CAIR-California, Sacramento Valley, and Central California chapter. I've been in this role since November, and Mahwish's case was one of the first matters that I had the privilege to work on. And so it means a great deal that we've at least brought that to partial fruition with the filing of this lawsuit on her behalf. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to introduce my client, Mahwish. Can she join us?
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mahwish Choudhry. Layli has been helping me with my case, and thank you for having me here.
Thank you both for joining. Before we kind of get into the details of the incident and talking a little bit more about your case, Mahwish, Layli, I would love to hear a little bit of how this case kind of came across your desk.
Well, it came across my desk because Mahwish, and we should perhaps ask her, somebody must have told you, Mahwish, about CAIR, or you must have known about us, because Mahwish had the forethought to file an intake with our office and to describe what had happened, which, obviously was a personal violation to her, but she must have understood on a deeper level that it's much more serious than that. And so she filed an intake with our office, and we pursued it from there. And now, probably more than a year later, we have a lawsuit, which I will let you discuss. I'll let you decide how to ask these questions, Zainub.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so Mahwish, if you could just describe the incident. We just heard that it occurred about a year ago. Or when it, I guess, came across CAIR's desk was about a year ago, so maybe even a little bit before that. So if you could tell us when it happened and a little bit about this incident we're talking about.
So basically, it was a year ago. It was me, my best friend, and my two kids. My daughter is now 10, and my son is 12. We were heading to Sequoia, and we were gonna Sequoia National Forest, and we were gonna meet up with a couple of friends over there that already reside like past that area. And we were heading. It was late night. We were just gonna get there, get to the hotel, and then meet up in the morning. Be able to celebrate Eid al-Adha. It was I believe July 31st, around that time. I got pulled over, and I was told that, actually it's, usually when they ask you, like, do you know why you were stopped? No, I wasn't, he never asked me anything like that. I was approached from one side. One officer came putting flashlights on the kids, and the other was on my side. And he just basically told me to roll down my window. He told me that something about my tags, and then also that in his in his opinion I was speeding. And then he asked me for my license and registration stuff, and then that's when I did not know my license was suspended for some reason. And he made it like, he made me seem like I was the one lying, that I knew, and yet I was still driving, and it was not in my knowledge. But eventually he pulled me out. He told me to come out of the car, took me like near his car, and then that's when I was arrested. And none of them were wearing masks. I was not allowed to go to the car, retrieve my mask, retrieve anything before I leave. and at that time my kids were crying and hyperventilating, and that they while one of them was handcuffing me, even though I was not resisting, the other one twists my arm and tries to assist him as if I was fighting back. And then they basically just put me in back there and behind the um, their patrol car. And then we get to Tulare County. Right before that, they asked me right before, like, we're about to enter Tulare, uh, the booking place. They asked me if I had any drugs on me, and I was kind of confused because I was like, "Why is he asking me that right now?" And he said, "If do you have any drugs on you? Because you need to tell me right now, because after this, once we enter this booking place, um, it's going to be a felony." So I said, "No, you." He actually already patted me down when he arrested me. So I said, You already checked me, and I don't have anything on me, and I can proceed." And he took me inside. I was taken. There was a first female officer who patted me down, and she basically pulled off my hijab. And I asked her, in the midst of, I was trying to catch my breath because the whole time I was crying. So I asked her, "Can you please put it back on? There are men around here." And she was like, I think she couldn't hear me. She's like, "What?" And I said, "Can you please put it back on?" And she put it back on. She sends me back to the other officers, the one who handcuffed me. He right before he was about to open my handcuffs, he yanks it off again. And I asked him, I said, "Can you please put it back on? It's for my religion, and there's men around here." And he said, "We don't wear anything on our heads in jail," and in a rude tone. And then he yanks it off and then opens my handcuffs and has tells me to go sit down while there was another officer who was doing the vitals and stuff, and they were writing down their information. And um, they started asking me, like, "Oh, is this the first time, like, something that you got pulled over for drinking and stuff?" And I said I wasn't pulled over for drinking, and I think they assumed that it was a DUI case. The officer turned around and told him that, "No, this is not it's a suspended license case." So, and then they take me back in. Now it was time for the booking photo. That was a different officer. Now uh, he was about to take my booking photo, and I asked him, I said, "Can I please put it back on? I do not want to be taken, I don't want my picture to be taken." And he said, "No, I cannot allow you that." And I said, "My license has, if you look at my license, it has my hijab on." And he says, "I don't care." And so he basically takes my photo there, and then I just sit there crying for all that time that they were doing paperwork. And because this was all a huge shock to me. And it just, not only that, but the fact that I was just sitting there without my hijab off for the first time in my life, and while nobody cared, like, it was way more than humiliating. Like, it's still, till this day, it hurts me. And like, I felt that I was you'd rather, like, for us, yeah, when, if it's not, or like our hijab is off like that, I felt that I was told to be sit there naked. And then I just sat there crying the whole time. And then another officer comes out from the where they do the paperwork, and she comes out and she just points at me. She's like, "Hey, you!" And she just basically points at tells me to follow her, and takes me to the cell and just locks me up there. And they kept me there until like 7 or 8 in the morning, until in the morning they just opened it up and they said, "Go to the counter and sign those paperwork." Not with much explanation. And right after that, they had let me make a call for my friend to pick me up. And while she was when my friend was when I got told that she was outside, the officer who was walking me outside, I asked her, "Can I put it back on? Because now, I'm walking out." And she said, "No, you cannot put it back on until you're out of the building." So I had to wait until I was out. Literally, I stepped out of the building to put it back on. And yeah, that was about it after that. And it took me days to even become normal after that. Like like even my friends, my kids know, like couple of days after that, I just literally curled in bed crying for days. So, but yeah, that was it for that. So, and I really appreciate CARE helping me on this. Like I came across after that, when this happened, I try to look up like what are the options, like I'm because I know what they did to me wasn't right, and I'm not gonna sit quiet about this. And so that's when I came across CARE, and like how like CARE is able to represent us for this and help us. So I really appreciate this. This is huge for me, honestly.
Mahwish, I have to first thank you for being courageous enough to share your story so publicly. Secondly, as a woman who also covers, I can't comprehend the feeling or the violation that occurred, right? It's so heartbreaking to hear. And I want to thank you for contacting CARE to see if we can really kind of get justice for this incident. And I'm so sorry that it happened to you. I do want to follow up with some questions about the incident. Mahwish, are you still there?
It looks like maybe she's having some connectivity issues. Zainab, are there any questions that I can answer for you in the meantime?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could kind of walk us through the process and on what it's been like to get Mahwish's case and the legal strategy that you have for it.
Well, I mean, the legal strategy is pretty straightforward. I mean, so what it's been like to get her case, I mean, this is one of those cases that, that we as an organization, really kind of take up, which is why that, our office is partnering also with the national office on this, because we always raise these issues. And Mahwish, as you just heard, her very kind of clear and thorough recitation of what happened to her that night. One fact that I would like to add to that is, that she actually was traveling. Hi, welcome back.
Hi, I'm so sorry. I have no idea what happened. It's one blank.
No worries. So Mahwish, I was just adding, I was just first of all complimenting you for your really thorough and clear recitation of what happened that night.
Thank you.
And I was just adding to that a fact which is not typical for the cases that we tend to bring on the hijab removal kind of setting. And that is that Mahwish happened to be in a county, Tulare County in California, where they do have a policy that recognizes the need to respect people's religious preferences or preferences that are grounded in any kind of sincerely held belief. In this case, Mahwish being a Muslim woman who is hijabi, and as she has, very kind of poignantly detailed what that means for her to be stripped of that. So this county actually respects that. And in theory, they do, at least in writing, they do. So what this represents is a violation of their own policy as well. Often in cases like this, what we're seeking is to get a county or an entity, a governmental entity, to institute a policy so that things like this won't happen anymore. What we have here is a policy, a county that has a policy that it has violated, in my view, in a way that is really kind of flagrant and malicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's absolutely ridiculous, that a department could have such a policy and then blatantly disregard it. And Mahwish, did any time when you were kind of, being booked, being around all these male officers, did they ever give you a reason as to why you couldn't wear your hijab, why you couldn't
No,
keep your scarf on?
not at all, because that's the only time he said something. It was like, we don't wear anything in jail. He just made it super clear to me right over
Right.
there. Like, yeah. But other than that, they didn't give me any explanation. They didn't like, I didn't even know until like I read with Layli, like when she sent me a copy of the complaint thing, and I didn't know that actually they are supposed to offer you some like from their something office based something, I believe.
Mhm.
Is that what it is, Lily?
Well, I mean, I guess what you're referring to is the fact that they and should if they don't want to let you wear your own hijab, they should give
Yeah.
you one that they have.
Yeah,
You know,
right. So
that
I was not even offered anything, and I was not even like given that option. It was just, he just made it super clear, we don't wear anything on our heads. We don't cover our heads in jail. That's what he made clear to me.
and remember, Mawish was wearing a hooded sweatshirt,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they even let her use the hood on her sweatshirt to cover her head. So that to me, these facts, when put all together, that's where it kind of comes into. It's not just kind of all of these staff members being ignorant of the policy that exists in their county. It's also this kind of, again, I keep coming back to the word malicious effort to deprive her of something that is clearly very, very meaningful to her and is not of any harm or danger or risk to them. And so I think that's kind of where we get into some of the legalities, because there can be a time where an entity will say, well, we really need to search because we don't know what Mawish may be hiding in her hijab.
right,
So what could they do in that instance, Mawish? They could move you to an area that is private, okay?
right, right.
Have a female officer perform that search respectfully, and then allow you to replace your hijab or to give you something in its place. But that's
Yeah,
not what happened. Nothing that happened to Mawish was done in any private area. She was always in view of males. She was always in view of other inmates, of other officers, of members of the public who might happen to be there.
hmm yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because as soon as you enter, there was a couple of inmates there. I think they're helping. They put them to work to help them make calls and stuff. But they could clearly see me. There was other people who were booked who could clearly see me, and then on the left side of it, then that's where the old officers were. It was like behind. There was like, including the two officers that brought me there. There was two more there. One was doing vital. One was, I don't know what was he there for, and then there was a bunch of them behind the desk. There was and everything was super clear. That everything was glass, so you could see clear through everything.
Yeah, and I want to kind of go back to this point that you mentioned, Layli. There was absolutely no risk associated, right? Mawish, when she was unfortunately arrested, it was peaceful. She didn't resist. She was thoroughly searched. Found that there was really, of course, nothing inside of her hijab that she was concealing, and still, they kind of went through these different, booking photos and putting her in a cell and in front of in view of all of these males just to really, like you said, it feels malicious and to humiliate her.
Mhm.
And it's so unfortunate because as you mentioned, Mawish, on your own, driver's license, I'm assuming even your passport photo, you're wearing hijab, right? You have those accommodations. The government knows that, that this is a religious accommodation, that this is how you dress in public.
Yeah,
And this is how anyone is going to see you anyways, right? So which is the point, I would say, even of a booking photo, to know what you look like. If you're never going to be found in public without your hijab, then what is the need to have your photo kind of be without your scarf?
Exactly. Exactly.
That is actually really perfectly stated, Zainab, because that is the entire point of these photographs, is to identify a person. And if we have, for example, in the state of California, the California driver's license, or for the non-drivers out there, the ID, the point of that is to identify somebody. And if the state can recognize that the best way to identify Mahwish is in a photograph that shows her as she is with her hijab, why is it then that the county booking people and indeed many police departments across the country and many sheriff's departments across the country do not recognize that? I should add as a counterpoint that some do, and that hopefully this is a movement that will, be shifting in the right direction. But yeah, what happened to Mahwish was wrong. It served no legitimate governmental or state interest. And just again, to sort of add to that, the point is, when you're doing something, when we have on the one hand a recognized kind of religious belief that is, recognized in law, and on the other hand, we have acknowledged interest on the part of law enforcement to be able to search a person, to be able to make sure that there's no contraband of any sort, when they're detaining a person. These interests can be balanced or harmonized by finding the way to perform that search in a way that is also respectful of Mahwish's religious beliefs. And that is a very simple thing. It's called having a female officer perform the search in a private setting. That is not hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that wasn't done, the fact that then and even when the female officer replaced her hijab, and I believe you probably mentioned this in your narration, Mahwish, one of the officers who had arrested her, who probably had no business dealing with her anymore. He's a California Highway Patrol officer. He just happened to be there hanging out, or maybe he had to be there through to a certain point. She was no longer his responsibility. He yanks it off her head after another officer has put it back. And so this is just the beginning of what is a continuing harm, because that booking photograph that was then taken of Mahwish is available in at least law enforcement databases. And that is what we call a continuing harm.
Yeah.
And Mahwish, I know we touched on this earlier. I can't imagine, the whole experience, how scary it was, to be pulled from your kids and kind of treated so horribly in the hours after. But I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier, and you said that the officer wouldn't let you grab a mask, and that no one at the station was wearing masks. And I want to remind everyone that this was a year ago, right? In the height of the pandemic, where the mask mandate was mandatory. And Mahwish, I really want to know, did they kind of give you any reason for why they said they weren't wearing masks, why you weren't allowed to wear a mask, despite, kind of going peacefully, and you kind of noting that, we're in the middle of a global pandemic?
Right. So no, they did not. When they pulled up, they didn't have any masks. Of course, we didn't in our car. We didn't, because we were family members. So, and we were in our car, so we weren't gonna be wearing masks in our car. But of course, when we step out, we put on masks. And but they were not wearing masks. They didn't give me any reason. They didn't even give me the the chance to grab anything, to a point that when my best friend who was in the car with me and my kids, they wanted to, like, when they were about to take me, they wanted to give me a hug, they said, no, you can't. You can't even or say goodbye or give a hug, because they knew that I was crying. So, and then they would not let us exchange anything, and let alone for me to go back and get mask. But then when I got to Tulare County, the booking place, nobody was wearing a mask there at all. So it was like, mm, like I was not as if it was not mandated over there in their facility. And but there was no reasoning given for this, that why we're not wearing a mask, why we're not letting you retrieve your mask.
Zainab, can I jump in here for a second? Yes. We included that information in our lawsuit for a reason. Mahwish has asthma. So this was an additional layer of harm where she's concerned. But really, for me, it was just like further evidence of just this kind of absolute lack of care, lack of regard for the law on the part of officers of the law, right? As Mahwish noted, as you noted, there was a mask mandate, statewide. In addition, listeners should know that, or viewers rather, should know that in that county, there had been issues with this sheriff and this, and those detention facilities, as far as the spread of COVID and the actually active suppression of efforts on the part of inmates in the county jails and exactly where Mahwish was held overnight, to protect themselves by wearing masks. So everything that they were doing at that time in that county was, working against, what is for the public good. So it's no surprise then that what happened to Mahwish happened, because that seems to be the way they're operating in that county.
Mm.
Right. And Layli and Mahwish, I want to thank you so much for, again, sharing your story and telling us about the legal strategy behind this case. Again, Mahwish, we are just so truly, sorry for this occurrence of why this happened to you. And I, for one, am really glad that you did reach out to CAIR. So inshallah, we can work to rectify this harm and make sure it's not repeated for any Muslim woman anywhere, inshallah. And Layli, Mahwish, please correct me if I'm wrong. What are, if anyone wants to stay up to date with kind of what happens next in Mahwish's case, we can, log on to CAIR-National or CAIR-California's website, subscribe to the newsletter to see if there are any updates with the case. And I just, before we all sign off, actually, Layli, one more question. What are the next steps in this case?
Well, at this point, we have filed our lawsuit. So the next step in this case would be for the county to file their answer to our claims. So these processes can take some time. Hopefully in time, we'll have an opportunity to sit down with some of the named defendants and have an interview with them, which in the law you call a deposition. These are the steps that are probably going to be happening over the next few months.
And like I mentioned before,
fact gathering.
Right.
For the court, yes.
And as I mentioned before, viewers can definitely check in with our newsletter to kind of stay up to date with this case as we work to get Mahwish justice.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much, Layli and Zainub. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Zainab. Good to see you, Mahwish.
Good to see you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.